everybody. Welcome back. Welcome to Life Made Easier podcast, where you're going to find ancient wisdom with a modern approach. I'm Dr. Tiffany Hunter.
And I'm Dr. Karen Janes. I am an energy healer and psychologist in the UK, and Tiffany is across the pond in America.
I am.
I'm really excited to be getting to this part because we decided to divide the topic into of manifestation, talking about manifestation, into two parts. And the last one, we got into talking about the myths and misconceptions, which we have discovered is quite hard to say, about manifesting and why it doesn't always work. And as promised, you now get to listen to the, well, how on earth do I do it to maximize your chances of success? Now I sound like a horrible ad for a, I don't know, something.
Late night infomercial.
Yeah. So go back and listen to the last podcast about the myths and misconceptions of manifesting. Did you see how I actually said that in one go? Listen to that first, because that will really help you get the most out of today. That will help you understand why we're talking about what we're talking about today and make sense of that.
Okay, but for those of you who don't want to do that, I will take 30 seconds and recap. Just don't time me. Manifestation is the word that's used to describe people's ability to create what they want in their lives and to keep things at bay that they don't want, using their energy and using the energy of the world. Obviously, super important to people, especially spiritual seekers. We all want what we want and we don't want what we don't want. Karen and I thought it was an important thing to talk about because we see people struggling with it a lot. We see people getting into lots of loops of self doubt and self-criticism, and it seems wholly unfair. And we wanted to do what we could do to help people get more of what they're looking for, particularly because it's our experience that people are willing to put in a tremendous amount of effort and commitment to get to do these things, to do the work. So let's work smarter and get better success. And just to recap what we went over briefly, we started off talking about how some of the problem is because people are getting really binary in their thinking. They're dividing their actions into good things, bad things, kombucha versus caffeine. They're evaluating themselves constantly as high vibration, low vibration based on what they're doing, and turning that into kind of a value judgment of themselves and other people. And that super restricts the energy. Nothing can flow and happen when that happens. And also generating a lot of mental activity with their activities, like the journaling and the affirmations and the meditation, but not actually fueling the engine of the process, just fueling the mental part of the process.
Yeah, it's like someone's given you a recipe for bread and then said, well, why didn't you make a cake? Like, why isn't this a cake you've produced? So again, the last podcast will really help you understand the why of what we're going to be talking about today. But as Tiffany touched on a bit there, one of the key limitations to successful meditation, manifesting, is
that's a different episode. We'll do that later.
That's a whole other episode. Is approaching it. Although actually, this would also be true of meditation. I think is that approaching it as a purely mental practice. So you could write 100 affirmations or say 100 affirmations about having financial security in the world. But if it's only happening in your mind, it will remain a thought and not an action in the world. So we talked quite a lot last time about that need to engage our energy, the energy part of us, in order to make our thoughts manifest in the world.
Okay, so and what we did put forward, not for the first time, depending on how many of our episodes you've listened to, is that we are made up of 3 parts: a mind, a body, and the energy. So when you hear Karen said using the mental part of us, that's what she's talking about. That it's a super simplification, but it's a helpful one. That when she says where it's a mental activity, what that means is that it's mostly the mind that's being used. And what we're putting forward is that we need to be getting the energy involved to be successful. But in addition to these three parts of us that exist, there's another outside part, right? So the part of us that's actually choosing what it is that we want to do, including which of the mind, the body, or the energy part of us that we want. And there's a helpful way of thinking about that comes from something called internal family systems, and they would call that part the self. Internal family systems is a wonderful therapeutic model that we're not going to do an episode on because that is not our expertise. But if you want to go look into it, go look into it. And they talk about the self being the part that's driving the bus, so to speak, that's deciding which skills and strength to draw upon from the other part of ourselves. So this part, the self, is where the desire to manifest this thing comes from. And then the self decides whether or not it's going to use the mind, the energy, or the body as the tool to utilize the job. So it's important to first be able to recognize that you have different tools to use, that which one is the best ones in the right tool for the manifestation, and then be able to use that at your conscious will, right? To be able to say, I want to use my energy and to know actually how to do that.
Yeah, and it occurs to me listening to you say that the energy part of us is always that slightly more mercurial and subtle part of us that the vast majority of people, I think, are less kind of aware of, less in touch with than our mind and our physical body. They're more tangible. We tend to be, in the world we live in, more aware of those parts of ourselves. And it's also really simple to tell people, recite an affirmation or write a goal in your journal every day. But it's not nearly so simple to teach people how to feel or use energy or the energy part of themselves. And even more so when you're not sat in front of us. We're doing a podcast. We're not even talking to you in real live time. So it is a harder part of ourselves to learn about, to become aware of, and to know how to use. And I think we are going to do another podcast episode on how to kind of really get more into that, how to feel and recognize energy. If that, some of you listening might feel you're familiar with that, but some of you may, feel, what are they talking about? I don't have any idea how to do that. We are going to touch on it enough today, hopefully to help you get started with manifesting. But if you're really interested in that, we will do a deeper dive into that another time. So briefly, often the easiest way to feel our energy might be a bit of surprising, but is through our physical body. And you may well have already had experiences, even if you're somebody who hasn't been particularly aware of that part of yourself or done any particular practice to try and connect in more and be more aware of your energy, is you may have had experiences that actually are you experiencing yourself as an energy being, if you like. And some common experiences of this, which again, through the teaching work I do and the healing work I do, that I know people do sometimes experience, even if they didn't know that that's what they were experiencing, is if you're standing very close to somebody and you find yourself wanting to kind of step away from them, and you know that it's not just about physical proximity or how well you know them or that they don't smell very good, or that you may struggle to think of a logical reason why you just want to pull away from that person. Or sometimes the reverse is true. You might meet a stranger that you just feel you want to snuggle into or get a bit close to again, and you can't really explain that in any sort of physical, logical way. And that's what's happening there, is the outside edge of your energy system is kind of bumping up against theirs without physically touching them. And you're feeling something in their energy that might feel not so good to you, or good to you, or familiar to you, or comforting to you. And it's not necessarily a bad or a good. It's just I like that, I don't like that. That feels comfortable for me, that doesn't. Other ways that you might have experienced your energy system, another common one is to feel kind of prickles on the back of your neck, and you turn around and you realize someone who you didn't know was there, or is actually looking at you, and it's almost like a part of your energy system is picking up their intent, their directed focus, attention that's on you in that moment. And sometimes it can take you a bit by surprise. Oh, I feel something. And you just find yourself turning around and go, oh, why is that person looking at me? And it could be someone you know or not. And probably the third, maybe most commonly way people might have experienced some energy in their own body is through a practice like maybe meditation or even Tai Chi or yoga or something like that, and beginning to get a sense of maybe I exist as a being slightly beyond the confines of the end of my physical body. So our skin is the boundary, that is our kind of outer limit of our physical body. We end our skin in a physical sense, but our energetic system extends a bit beyond our physical body. So there is a part of us that is in the world that is beyond just our physical container, if you like. And again, that's why you might feel someone near to you and have a sense about them, even if you're not touching or even looking at them. So we can also, feel energy alongside our kind of blood circulating. So, our although we talk about these three parts of ourselves, our physical body and our energy system and our minds are not completely separate. So there are lots of techniques you can do to build this skill of, like a Tai Chi class, that kind of thing will be a way that you might begin to feel your energy alongside your blood circulation, for example. And it really is, I think we can't stress this enough. We talked about it a lot in the last episode. For manifesting, it really is imperative that we're kind of connected to our own energy, and that when we're trying, whatever we're trying to manifest or however we're trying to do that, isn't just coming from our mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you make me think when you say the three parts of us are all connected. Of course, what I think of is the Venn diagram with the overlapping, but I think I can say with confidence for most people, if not all people, trying to access the energy through the mind is really problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Access the energy
Yeah.
through the body. And don't make yourself crazy if you feel like, is this energy? Is this body? Is this is my blood pumping, or is this chi? Um, it doesn't matter in the beginning. It really doesn't. It's okay. It's like when I'm teaching someone to read auras, right? Or be able to understand the information coming off of somebody's aura. Are they reading the energy off the aura, or are they reading somebody's facial expressions? And the answer in the beginning is a little bit of both when you first start, right? And the way that you gain confidence to understand which is which, is it the body, is it my energy, is it my mind, is just by doing it and allowing it to be okay that you're confusing them in the beginning, right? Because the more you
Yeah.
do it, the
Yeah,
more
for
clarity
sure.
you will get from it. The more clarity you'll get from it. Okay. So once you've identified what you want with the part of you that we're calling the self, and once you've used whatever techniques are best for you to connect to your energy, the next step is to match the energy with focus, right? The energy with desire of you that you've just created with the thing out in the world that you're trying to connect with, either to bring with you, find you, or you go out and find. And so to take the example of the romantic partner, once you've created mentally the image of what you want, like, okay, I know I want a romantic partner, you need to sit and really feel in your body what it would feel like to be with that person. Who is that person? How creating a feeling in your body with your energy, with your mind, what that person feels like, as opposed to any other person that you're not looking for, right? I want somebody who feels like this. And you do that by sitting in your body and feeling and imagining what it is you want and kind of collecting all of that to you. And you need to use all your senses to do that because, again, we're trying to access the energy through the body. So what do I think it's going to smell like? What do I think it's going to feel like when, Karen talked about standing next to somebody and feeling their energy? What's it going to feel like standing next to them? When you bring all of that together and collect it underneath you by your belly, right? And for other reasons and other podcasts, we'll talk about why that's important. Near your belly, and you collect that, then you need to allow it and to release it out into the world, right? You need to release it into the world. And in that way, the best imagery that I can give you is that your energy is kind of like the bow and the desire is the arrow. And so you collect it all with you and then shoot the desire, shoot the invitation, the request, the match, the connection out into the world so that those two things can come together. And then let it go and let it do its job. And you can top it up if you want to.
I love that image of the bow and the arrow that you're, because there's I'm not an archer, but there's like a tension before the arrow's released. It's like that's the building up and then ping, out it goes. But
Yeah.
while you were
Yeah.
talking, and I think this is really useful to say in terms of any kind of meditation, any kind of visualization, find an image that works for you. Because listening to you talk, Tiffany, I had in my head this, I know it was like rainbow colored kind of a stream or a river of my wishes, my desires or whatever, almost like flowing out into the world and then looping round and like collecting, the way a stream kind of collects what's in its path and moves it along, collecting whatever it is I'm looking for and then bringing it back, looping back
Love
round
that.
to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that
it's
image.
just different ways of, it doesn't matter how you visualize it, but other things might occur to you as you're listening to us talk or as you start trying to do it. Oh, the bow and arrow really works for me, or the stream image really works for me, or come up with other things, and please do tell us about them, because we'd love to hear about them and share those things as well in the future. The other thing we talked about, so we've talked a bit about how we need to engage that energy part, but we've also talked about in the last podcast the way that our emotions can get in the way of us successfully manifesting. And we tantalized you with this because we briefly talked about how having an emotional response when you start doing some manifesting isn't a bad thing. We can use that to our advantage. It doesn't matter. I mean, even if you started, trying to manifest something and then what you came to realize was, I don't really want this. That's a useful piece of information, because you can stop putting loads of energy and effort and time into trying to manifest something that actually is not really what you're looking for. So we can use this process of and again, it doesn't really matter which of the tools you use, and it's not the tools themselves that are problems. So the journaling, the affirmations, the meditations, visualizations, however you want to go about it, the tools are useful. We just want to make sure they're not purely coming from a mental place, that we are engaging our energy, but that we're also taking some time to see what that feels like emotionally. What Tiffany really described well about if I'm trying to manifest a romantic partner, I want to really take some time to think about, well, who is that person? What are they, not necessarily what do they look like, and, do they have blonde hair and blue eyes or whatever, but more like what's the feeling of them? And what would it be like to have that relationship in my life? And it may well be that as you start defining that a bit more, you have some emotional responses to it. That might mean you then want to change something a bit about, it might mean you want to pause and say, do you know what, maybe I'm not quite ready for a relationship. And I want to go away and work through some of that emotional stuff, and then come back to it when I feel ready. And that's great. That's now, you might discover, all kinds of things about, you might be like trying to get a relationship because your friends think you should, or your mom wants you to. And it could be a huge relief to say, do you know what, that's not right for me. That's not what I want. It will also be really common to have kind of mixed feelings. So you might absolutely want that relationship and feel really scared about it, because the idea of being in a relationship again or for the first time might feel really daunting. And we're going to make ourselves a bit vulnerable in a close, intimate relationship. That can be quite scary. And again, just like taking some time to sit with those feelings, or go get some help with them if you need to from a professional. But it's the really trying to make use of our emotions, to allow ourselves room to say, well, feeling any kind of conflict or concern about something that I'm trying to manifest isn't something I need to push away or try and pretend or convince myself I'm not feeling. It's something instead we can go, oh, that's interesting that that's coming up for me. And then, take some time, or what do I need to do to kind of help process that, or to move past that, or just change the goal because it's not the right goal. And there can be real, acceptance and relief as we do that.
I love that. I also, before I jump on that, I want to go backwards for a second. Actually, I want to go double backwards for a second because I think I forgot
Okay,
to,
go on
I don't
then.
think I know, I forgot to include challenging emotions in my recap of what we talked about last time. So
Right.
I'm really, really glad you remembered and brought it in. But I want to go back to what you said, maybe not so much blonde hair and blue eyes, but more about what it feels like. And I think that is massive because when I
Mm-hmm.
see most people being taught to manifest, they're told to make a list. Like one of the things that we keep talking about journaling and meditating and affirmations, but we didn't mention this one, which I see a lot, is the list. Make a list of all the things you want, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be blonde, blue eyed, financially stable, tall, has a dog, like blah, 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 blah. And that's again so mental. And nothing in that process gets the body to generate any energy.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
in fact, I think not only does it not do that, but it engenders a lot of judgmental kind of experiences of, well, if they're not this tall, then that's just not okay. There's a lot of that
I
going
haven't
on.
done my
Do I deserve
manifesting right because they're too short, or they're too, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. 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 I love that you said that so clearly. That's not going to get you there. What's going to get you there is, what does it feel like to sit next to them?
Mm.
What does it feel like to be with them, to be vulnerable to them, to have them vulnerable to me and protect that relationship?
Well, also,
Okay.
it occurs to me like the kind of now we're kind of going off on more of a tangent. Um, the what am I hoping for from a relationship? Like, what does it mean
Yes.
for my life to have a partner, to have someone to share stuff with, to have someone to cozy up with on the sofa, or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Okay. So back to the emotions. The thing that came to mind when I was listening to you that I just wanted to get in there was, I love what you're saying about really setting up the emotions as kind of the compass to tell us what we want. Um, and there's so much energy in emotions.
Mm.
And I feel like we can either, they're like these little pockets of energy stored in our bodies. And we can either suppress them and get all constricted and weird with ourselves, or we can release them and manage them and understand them and then use them to our benefit.
Yeah, that's such a great image. The pockets of, I'm imagining these little pockets of emotional energy just kind of bursting. Um, yeah. So we've talked a bit about the techniques, and I think we could spend more time specifically talking about, well, how do you go about doing a journal, or how do you go about creating a vision board, or all that kind of stuff. But I think there's already so much information out there about those things.
So much.
Just Google journaling, or techniques for manifesting, that will give you so many ideas about the literal sort of practical things that you can do. But I think what we really wanted to give you was the that need to add energy, to engage your energy system
Missing
in some
pieces.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to check in with your emotions. So but we are going to talk a little bit more about some of these things. So and how to kind of bring it into action, if you like. So importantly, that word action, manifesting requires action. Many years ago, I started, I wanted to extend my healing practice to a different area. So I worked for a little while in someone else's clinic. And I remember the woman who owned it, telling me that a lot of the therapists who came to work in her clinic would say things like, well, I don't really need to do any marketing because spiritual marketing will take care of that for me, and people will just turn
Right.
up. And then they didn't. And I remember thinking, listening to her say that, well, you have to give people a way to find you. So,
Well, can
and
you
this
say a little
goes,
bit more about what she means when she says spiritual marketing?
yeah, so it's this kind of idea that, the people who are meant to come to you as a practitioner of whatever kind will somehow, some magical thing will happen and they will know that you're the person to help them, and they will just kind of turn up at your door without you needing to um, do anything very practical. But if you don't have a website out in the world with your phone number or an email address or a way to book an appointment with you, how are people supposed to know you're there? So even if there is this magical, wonderful thing happening that you're putting energy into your business, that, and I think is true for any business, really, any type of business, we can be building our business up and, doing all kinds of things and really believing in it. But we need to actually take some action. We need to announce to the world we're there so they can find us. And, similarly with dating, we can sit at home going, I want a bit like you talked about last time, I want a pony, I want a pony, um, not to date. Um, but, you can be like, I can sit at home and I can do all this amazing stuff in my journal or meditation or whatever to try and focus on attracting a partner to myself if I'm single and really want someone else in my life. But if I don't get myself out in some way to meet people, I mean, maybe I'll strike lucky and I'll bump into someone at the shop that I get chatting to and it goes from there. But you're probably more likely to be successful with your manifestation if you do think of some actions you can take to support it, to say, I mean this, I want to make this happen. So maybe you put yourself on a dating app. If that isn't for you, maybe, start telling your friends, I feel like I'm really interested in beginning a new relationship now. I'm really keen to meet some people. If you have any friends, I'd love to, if you're going to any parties, I'd love to come along with you. Or, maybe if that kind of approach isn't for you, just join some new groups or organizations or something that do things that you enjoy, so you can just meet some people you might have some stuff in common with. And that will, it's almost like, I don't really like this term, the universe will provide, that kind of stuff, but it's like let the universe, help the universe to help you. Put yourself out there so that you can, your manifestation stands the best chance of being successful. You're probably not, if you're trying to manifest more finances, you're probably not going to magically just have a sum of money jump into your bank account. I mean, if you do, amazing, great. But again, so if we go back to the idea of starting a business, you've got to at some point open the shop. You've got to do that build that website. You've got to advertise your services, let people know you're there, take the actions to start to physically build in the world the thing that you're mentally trying to engage your energy, trying to get your emotions on board with, trying to create, so it can all come together.
Yeah, I think this very much loops back to what we've been saying about emotions, because because I can almost feel it in my head in anticipation that people listening to this, when you got to the part about creating a dating profile or figuring out how to make a website, this kind of like mass sinking feeling for all of our listeners, right?
Yeah.
It's so much more comfortable to stay at home and make your list of what
Hmm.
you want than it is to have to go and figure out how to make a website or
Sure.
go and put a dating profile together. But here's the thing about that, and this is why I think it relates to the emotions, because all of those emotions of no, I don't want to do that still exist, even if you're not dealing with them,
Hmm.
right? And so again, coming back to this, like, emotion, let's take those big emotions and transform them into things that we can use by tackling the emotions that are relevant to be on, say, the dating profile is the obvious one, because in order to do that, I've got to come to terms with how I feel and how I feel about I look and how do I feel about other people seeing that and how do I describe myself, and there's so many things there that have to be unpacked. And in that every time I unpack all of that, I get another little pocket of energy to use in my engine. right? And if I'm not unpacking that, they're still there, they're still holding me back. They're still preventing the manifestation from working. So when you have to get into action and you start to feel those things, see it, I would say, see it as an opportunity to actually increase the engine, but also look at the compass. Right, it's also the
Mm-hmm.
compass, right? Because you can really get into, like you said so well before, like maybe I don't want to be dating. Maybe
That's
I just
allowed.
think I'm supposed to be, right? And so when I feel resistance, let's really take the time to get deep into what is the resistance so that I can be clear with myself about what my compass is. And lastly about that, the truth is that without the practical element, you know, I will share a personal part of myself here, because I was guilty of this for a while until a friend finally said to me, look, Tiffany, at this point, somebody would have to walk up to you while you were going from the yoga class to your car and say, "Excuse me, I had a dream about you. And it told me to come find you at this time at this place." Like that was like the only way that anybody was ever going to find me, because I was isolating and I was, doing my best to manifest and doing nothing to be out to give anybody a pathway back towards me.
Now I have in my head a boomerang. Um, this like the thing about a boomerang, just in case you don't know, I'm sure you do, is that when you throw it, it supposedly, circles around and comes back to you, but you have to release it. You have to send it out into the world in order for it to be able to come back to you. And it's not enough to just let it drop to the floor. You can't just let go, because then it's just at your feet. It hasn't been out into the world in order to come back. You have to put some effort, some energy into sending it away, sending it out there in order for it to circle back again. I feel like we're just on it with the metaphors and things today.
Some kind listener will sketch some of these out for us and we can show them to people. The
Yeah,
manifesting
hopefully.
boomerang and rainbow river and bow and arrow. I'd love to see
Yeah,
what that looks like.
definitely. And the person sitting on their driveway with the, steering their car without actually having started it. Yeah, that kind of stuff. That was from last time. Um, the other thing that I now feel like it would be helpful to say something about is, I heard someone call this the lie of once. Like, once I do this, then I'll be happy. Once I do this, I will have success. Once I have this in my life, I can, get the relationship. I can, and this idea that it's always over there. We always need something else. And, that takes us very much away from being kind of where we are and giving ourselves room to really focus on, well, okay, there's things that I would like in my life that I don't currently have, but or I want more of, maybe. But we can do that in a way that really opens things up and helps us to not then make that the answer to our happiness. Because if we're over focusing, we're I have to have that thing in order to be happy, or to feel successful or whatever. We're clamping down on the energy of letting that, all that we've been talking about with our boomerangs and our flying rivers and our bows and arrows, we have to let them flow. We have to let them go, and to try and keep that path as clear and simple as possible. And to be, combine that with our fairly specific instructions, not the blonde hair and blue eyes or whatever, floats your boat, but the kind of, how is this going to make me feel? So we're bringing all that together.
Yeah.
And then, giving ourselves again room for the emotional kind of side of things at each step. I think of the way that's so important. And sometimes easier said than done, but the more we can relax into this process and just enjoy it for what it is, let me see what happens, let me see where this goes, where this turns out, we can we will do it in a more relaxed and kind of flowing, easy manner that won't be making it so important that it isn't it can't happen because it's so constricted. And we can
Mhm.
always, readjust or straighten the path a little bit, or increase the revs on the engine if we need to put some more energy in some of the ways we've talked about. But it's trying to be, kind of light and as easy with it as we can.
Yeah. So, we've been talking a lot about manifesting very concrete things, but I want to bring the conversation into a little less tangible things, like manifesting more calm in our lives, more patience, more openness, more
Mm,
connectedness. Because
mm,
although people don't tend to think about that, I think there's real value in that. Um, the suggestions, the myths and the tips and tricks haven't changed. They're absolutely the same. But in those circumstances, when you're focusing on what it is you want and trying to generate the energy behind that and the feeling of you want before you send it at the invitation out to the world, you might want to focus, let's say for groundedness, might want to focus on, when do you feel grounded? What are the activities in your life that you feel more groundedness? So if you feel more grounded when you're walking through nature, then that's what you're focusing on, right? Because you're creating, instead of focusing on the person that you're trying to create, you're focusing on that feeling of groundedness when you're taking a hike through a forest, right? Or when you're riding your bike. I would say hanging around horses, except I think we keep picking on horses a lot.
I wonder why.
Whatever those things are. And then in terms of action, the obvious thing is go do those activities more. Spend
Yeah,
time doing those activities.
yeah,
And I also wanted to say, if you're recognizing yourself in any of these things, or especially our first kind of part one of this, where we were talking about misinformation, try not to panic. It's really not a problem. The thing to focus on is your desire, your commitment, and your willingness to do the work. And quite frankly, you wouldn't be listening to us if you didn't have those things. So this is really just a course correction and a way to add these things to what you're doing so that you can be more successful at what you want.
yeah. I'm wondering if it would be helpful right now for me to just do a very tiny recap of, because I feel like
Yes,
we've kind of
please.
we've done we've done like quite a deep dive into some of these things, which has taken us off on a little bit of tangents here and there. So identify your desire. What is the thing you want more of? Whether that is a more tangible thing, or as Tiffany was just talking about, a more I want to be calmer in my life. I want to deal with conflict more easily, or whatever it might be. So identify your desire, and then choose your technique. So meditation, affirmations, journaling, and all of the above, vision boards, whatever, it doesn't matter. And you can do more than one, just try one, see what it's
Just
like,
choose.
see if it suits you. Yeah. Then try and, as you start using that technique, then try and connect your energy to it as best you can. And that's going to be a learning process for, many people listening to this. Allow yourself room to have emotional responses at any of these stages, really, and then engage in the relevant action to start being out in the world and helping the thing that you're trying to make happen. So something like, if you want to be calmer, okay, maybe I book myself some pampering sessions, or do a Reiki class, or do something that will help me feel more relaxed and calm more of the time. Or as Tiffany said, spend more time outside, or take more baths, or whatever it is that for you would make you feel calmer. Then remember that it's not something generally, sometimes you might get lucky, but it's not something generally that you just do once and then that's it, you're done. So kind of repeating it a bit can be helpful. Especially if you've been doing it for a little bit of time and it feels like it's not working, revisit the steps. Okay, should I try a different technique that I might feel more comfortable with? How easy am I finding it to put my energy behind this? Are there some emotional conflicts that I'm not quite telling myself yet? And if you're struggling a bit, it could be helpful to talk it through with somebody, a trustworthy person, a friend, or whoever. Not somebody who will tell you what they think you should do. somebody who will listen and, maybe just ask you some questions. Have you thought about this? Or, whatever, it might help you clarify where you've got stuck. That could help if you are not quite getting there.
Nice. And as we're wrapping up here, like the last thing that I think we want to add is be patient. Sometimes these things can work amazingly fast, sometimes not. And there's still a chance that it won't work, even when you're doing everything right. And that's not a reflection on you. Sometimes there are simply too many variables around us for us to be able to control everything. And frankly, as much as we'd like to, we really can't control everything. So keep expectations realistic. Understand that that this is something that you're engaging in the world in, right? You're making an invitation, you're making a request out into the world to have something, and sometimes the answer is no. And learning to be okay with that is part of the process. Learning to be okay with that and not making it a value judgment on ourselves is the lesson there.
Oh, you reminded me. I was actually listening to something the other day, and the person, I wish I could remember who it was saying, imagine if we all got everything we wanted all the time, and the chaos that would cause. Like, because there would be occasions when, what you want and what I want might conflict, or whoever. And, there's a reality to our world that we can't always have what we want when we want it.
Yes,
And
there's a great song about that too.
yes, there is. Now
I
everybody's going to
won't
have an
sing it. I
earworm.
will save you all.
But it's sometimes part of the lesson is accepting, okay, maybe that's not my thing right now. And I'm sure I know I personally have times in my life that I can think back, I really wanted that and it seemed so important at the time. And actually, then something else came along, which was so much better. Or I can really see how having that thing probably wouldn't have been as helpful for me as I thought it would be at the time. Do go back and have a listen to the previous podcast on this topic, because it may be that once we've talked through some of our ideas about what you can do, it will help you again to really dig into that. None of this is a way to blame yourself if it's not working properly. It can be so easy to just confirm our own negative thoughts about ourselves, and then we're really getting into the realm of sort of toxic positivity, which we do have another podcast topic on. But that way that we can, start to feel I'm just not positive enough, and so I'm a terrible person, or I don't deserve it, that kind of thing. And I think if we leave you with nothing else, I would like you to take that away, because manifesting ideally should be a joyful and fun support to you shaping your life using all the skills at your disposal, not just manifesting. There will be many parts of you that are good about, at getting things in the world, and creating the life you want. This is quite a practical topic in a way, today's episode. And one of the things Tiffany and I would really love to do is another episode on this topic. We thought this was just going to be two, we thought it was going to be one, then we thought it was going to be two, and now it seems it may be more. But we'd love to do an episode a little bit further down the line where you can send in your questions about how you've got on with trying to practice manifesting in your life. And also tell us about your successes, where you struggled and where, where it's really worked well, which tools have most helped you.
Yeah, and the techniques that you're using.
Yeah, that would be great. We'd love you to do that.
Yeah, it would be great to see what people are doing and share them with each other, because as you say, Karen, this is super practical. It's also crazy dense.
Yeah.
When we started out talking about it, I wouldn't be surprised if people have to listen to this more than once.
Mm-hmm.
It's an incredibly dense topic, and there's many rabbit holes, but it's been super fun to cover. So hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Again, let us know how you get on. Please share your experiences so we can share it on air so that everybody can learn from it and benefit from it. And we hope to see you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Carol Smith, the producer of the Life Made Easier podcast. We hope today's episode gave you some meaningful tools and takeaways to help make your life feel a little lighter. You've reached the end of this episode, but not the end of the ways that you can support us. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, follow us on social media, And check out our Patreon for extra content and ways you can go deeper with us. There's also a whole library of episodes waiting for you to help increase your energy intelligence. Take care, and we'll see you on the next Life Made Easier.